A good example was like the roach in StarCraft 2. That was a brand new thing. And initially, from what I experienced, like people weren't huge on it because they were like, oh, well, it's kind of an expensive unit and it only shoots ground units, you know, like it can't hit air, but it's ranged. I mean, it was cool that it was ranged, but like it wasn't anti-air at all. It was purely ground, and since it was like you had to kind of dedicate a lot of resources to it. If someone just went air, that they beat roaches. And so people were like, oh, I don't know. But then they figured out these roach hydra combinations, and they're like, oh my god, this new thing is actually an integral piece in this really cool metagame. And it works, and people love it. So like roaches are awesome. People who play Zerg love roaches. And so that's kind of where their innovation came in, you know. Like they reused the Zergling, they tweaked the Hydra, they added entirely the concept of the roach. And so that kind of follows the same thing he was talking about. It's interesting. I also asked him about the question that I didn't get to ask, was when the guy was inquiring about what makes people come back, like if you have to give up on them after a while because there's a limit on how long someone can play a game. And I was like, well, obviously that's not true, you know? Like there are games, talking about StarCraft, that people will play just forever. People play StarCraft 1 for 12 years or whatever, and same thing with Street Fighter or Marvel vs. Capcom, you know? These are all competitive games that people play as a sport, and they will play, you know, like the MOBA, the Here's a New Earth, League of Legends, Dota. They play them forever. And yeah, those MOBA games get additions, you know, they get new champions or whatever. But StarCraft, other than Brood War, was really much it. And like the quintessential example is chess. You know, chess never changes, but people play it forever. And it's like the competitive aspect of it. So I asked if he thought that there was any inherent limitation in using Facebook as a medium that would prevent you from achieving something like that sort of staying power. You know, like, could you make a game within Facebook that people would be playing competitively 10 years from now? You know? And he pointed out that, you know, out of all the games that are made every year, how many games end up like StarCraft? And it's like, yeah, obviously not many. You know, all of the MOBAs have done fairly well, you know, like League of Legends had a big thing at DreamHack. I think a champion, first place prize was like $50,000 or something, like it's a big deal. And obviously Dota spawned the whole genre, I believe. And Here's a New Earth has a big community as well. But if you think about the RTS genre, like StarCraft is like it. And I didn't want to bring that up and be like, no one plays Red Alert 2 competitively, because the guy made it. But like, I don't ever hear talk about competitive Command & Conquer or Age of Empires or Supreme Commander, or when I played Sins of Solar Empire. You know, it's pretty much Blizzard games. You know, people play Warcraft 3, play StarCraft. And I don't know why exactly that is. You know, I haven't delved too much into the specifics of the RTS genre, but from what I understand is there's like a more nuanced kind of counter system, you know, like rock, paper, scissors in the Blizzard games, as opposed to, I know in Total Annihilation, you would just get the biggest unit and mass it and win, you know, like use to race. And StarCraft, like, that's not true. You know, you can race to Ultralisks, but if he gets Banshees, you lose, you know, or Ravens, or, you know, Void Rays, whatever. So it's not just mass your highest tech unit and win, but it's like this dynamic kind of competitive play that engenders people to play forever. So I think it's kind of interesting to think about a Facebook game that would achieve that same feel. You know, like make it competitive, you know, because, you know, like Farmville, obviously big success, but in a way it's competitive, but it's more like a pissing contest, you know, like my farm's bigger than your farm kind of thing. You don't actively compete. It's like a passive competition.
What about their new allies in what's it called?
Oh, Allies and Nations or whatever. Yeah, yeah, it's like a superficial competition. Because, like, yeah, you can attack people and get resources, but you can't really kill them. You know, like, they can't really lose. So I might be all up in their face, and they get a big red marker that, you know, people are like, oh, red, bad, I want to get rid of them. So they're incentivized to defend themselves, but end of the day, you can't really lose. They don't have matches. You know, that's a big thing with Words with Friends, like AKA Scrabble, is it's a match. So you do it over time, but you have an ending point, and then you're like, oh, I beat you. And the problem, I think, with Words with Friends, that it won't be like that kind of staying power, is that I felt like the game was too long. You know, you did interactions with each other. Obviously, Facebook is prolonged turns. You know, like, you're not going to have a 25-minute game. You know, it'll go over a span of several days because someone doesn't do their turn for 8 hours. You know, which is fine. But Words with Friends had so many turns. I mean, I had a single game that went for 12 days. You know, and we used up the whole board, but it took forever. So if you had a game that was more reasonable, more reasonably timed, I guess, because that's kind of the notion of competition. Like, you have to be in the moment. And that might be an inherent flaw in the Facebook medium, is that you can't get in the zone. You know, if you listen to any competitive gamer talk, they'll be like, you know, my body just started doing things on its own. You know, I saw the game. You know, like that whole, if you remember you watch that movie Avatar, they're like, I know you. You know, like, it's like a sixth sense kind of, they're in the zone, like a meditative state. And that just gets constantly disrupted if you're in a Facebook game, because you take a turn and then go do something else. So you're never going to get entranced in, you know, the heat of battle kind of aspect. So it's very much, I mean, maybe you could do like a Civ thing, you know, like turn-based strategy, but actually have it be a match, and so someone will win, and then, but you'd have to have really clever gameplay and like really kind of really emergent, adaptive scenarios to have any kind of staying power again, because you lose that immersion and that engagement as soon as they log out, and that kind of, you know, like I called it a trance. You know, you watch the guys playing Street Fighter, and it's like they're almost unblinking. You know, they're in the zone, and I'd be interested to see if that kind of thing could be achieved via Facebook. I have my doubts, but I mean, it'd be cool. I mean, at the very least, to get away from the Farmville thing, where you can't lose. You know, actually have matches. So you don't base it all around progress. You know, and I mean, that might be the key to Farmville's success, is that people like the growth of something. It's like any RPG. People think that, oh, now I'm level 1. Oh, well, now I'm level 2. You know, like, they like seeing their things grow and accumulate, and that's definitely an incentive to play the game, because you want to keep growing and growing and getting better and better. But if you could come up with something that was clever enough to make it so active competitions were successful and satisfying, I think that'd be cool.
What about that one that Square Enix tried to do? There was I know there's a Chocobo one, but there was the fighting one, the Final Fantasy like one. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was the same thing. Like, it was an RPG. It was the same basic concept. It was based around growth, and yeah, you lose battles, but you couldn't die. Like, you would just lose a fight, and then it'd be like, oh, well, you lose some health and an action point, and you've got to rest. But it's not like your character could die, and it's like, yeah, your character's dead. Start over. So it was like a permanent investment. You know, like, this was my character. It's not like I spawn as Terran, you spawn as Zerg, we go at it, and oh, you know, I got a GG out, restart new game. None of what I did in that game translates over to the next game. You know, like, it wasn't like that. It was still just a permanent investment in a single character kind of growth thing.